episode of the Mighty Normal podcast. As you can see in the picture here is a beautiful lady named Alyce Fernebok, a very good friend of mine for a number of years now, and I'm very excited to have you on, Alyce. Welcome.
Thank you, Teresa.
And Alyce right now is in sunny San Diego as well. So as you can see, she's in a beautiful area of her home.
It's actually sunny.
It's sunny. We live about a mile from each other, but we decided to be in separate locations because we like to have conversations like this over the internet. And that's the beauty of conversations on the internet now, like Zoom, Skype, is you can be literally a block away and not have to leave your home.
Yeah.
Huh?
I said there's something a little sad about that too.
I know. Yes, I agree. But thankfully, Alyce and we get together quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it would be fun if we're both very tall women. So if we did have this interview in person, we'd be hunched in front of my computer. So that I think this actually works better. So Alyce, how tall are you actually?
I'm only 5'11". I used to be 6 foot, but I've successfully shrunk an inch.
It's okay. That happens. But she's part of the Tall Lady Club.
Yeah.
Actually, isn't very common. So
and part of the Shrinking Lady Club too.
Yeah. But we are all still working on our posture, so we still have hope. We stay in CrossFit and doing pull-ups and standing up straight. So I want to tell everyone how I met Alyce. So this was back in 2015. I was at a Christmas party at the CrossFit gym that we both went to in Barrio Logan, great part of San Diego, at Fathom before it shut down. And I met you through a mutual friend, Jessica Law, who was a friend and acupuncturist. And it was around the time I was working on my book, and I needed, I met Alyce, and it was like instant connection, fellow Marine Corps sister, someone who I just immediately looked up to. And what I was learning about with a book, and people kind of look at the writing process as pretty daunting. Like, a lot of people want to write a book, it's just the process is so hard and it can take so much time, and people are always looking for, the quotes for the book are really important. For me, once I met Alyce and learned about her story, instantly I was like, I want this woman to represent women in the military. They're what this story tells them. And so immediately I was like, I want you to write this book for Warrior. Like you have the perfect demeanor, background, and just overall outlook on life. I was like, yes, positive, strong woman, leader.
It was great, Teresa, because you did all the work writing the book, but I got published right along with it.
Yeah.
And I only had to work about, I read your book, and then I only had to, which was a pleasure, and then I only had to do about 15 minutes of work, and there I was published. It was a great deal for me.
Yes, well, exactly. And now you're all over the world, Alyce. But I just, in the industry, working in the fitness industry and I've met so many wonderful people. I've met a lot of Marines, and you just were the one that I wanted. I knew right away. You were the one, Alyce, you were the one. So since then, Alyce has been like a big sister to me, and someone who is a mentor, someone who's helped me through some hard times in my life, and someone who I can, go over there late at night and cry on her shoulder. She's always there. So I wanted to have you on today, Alyce, because I know, you've been a huge advocate of the adaptive work I've done, and helped me get my program out there and my teachings out there into the veteran communities. And have been a great advisor for me and my husband running Movement RX, as well as the digital programs we have. So the reason why having you on today is because I know you've had your own new normal experiences and your own things that you've had to adapt and overcome. Not only just transitioning from the Marine Corps, but just your experience while being in the Marines, and then with the recent loss of your father too. So before we get into these more serious topics of adapting and overcoming, I would really like to know what your spirit animal is. If you were to be an animal, anyone at all, like what animal do you identify with the
Ooh,
most?
that is, that's a really hard question. um, I, pass. Can you ask me another question?
This is the one.
I don't really, I can't say I really have a spirit animal. I mean, I do have my dog on my lap right now,
Thanks.
but when we talk about my dad a little later, he did have one that kind of came to him during his treatment for cancer, and it's a really sweet and funny story. So I could kind of talk about that a
Yeah,
little bit
go
later.
ahead. Well, what was his animal?
Elephant.
Elephant. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I like that.
And since he his spirit animal kind of came to him after recovery from one of his surgeries, and granted he had a lot of painkillers in his system, and I think he had a little bit of a hallucination, but in this hallucination he was holding a baby elephant in his lap. And since then, elephants were something he was very intrigued with and brought him a lot of comfort, and he believed that these were his his spirit animal. And a funny thing about that is I haven't had that same type of experience, but now I often, I have the Shakes, a little dog I held up, and then I have this other little poodle that I hang out with that's about 4 pounds. And often I have in a regularly occurring figure in my dreams and they're always in two, kind of like you always see the elephant symbols, like the mom with the whole and the child elephant. 2 teacup size elephants
That's in your dreams?
That walk around in my dreams, and I hold them, and they're little, like this.
Oh, that's so cute.
They're a little smaller, but they're little fuzzy elephants. And I think it's funny that this version of my dad's spirit animal is traipsing through my dreams in this teacup version that I'm often picking up and holding, and that seems perfectly normal to everybody in my dreams, that there would be teacup elephants being held and passed around and carried. So yeah, that's my spirit animal story for you.
I like that spirit animal story, actually, and maybe that's your dad coming to you in your dreams too.
Yeah.
And so in the spirit of sharing someone else sharing someone we love spirit animal, most of the people that have been listening know mine. It's a polar bear. I'm big and white and cuddly, but I'm also vicious, warrior. I just really love polar bears. It's my favorite animal at the zoo. I don't like cold as much as they do, but I'm like a San Diego.
You're a San Diego Zoo polar bear.
Yes, but I did ask Magnus, my son, his spirit animal, and I tried to explain it to him in the way a 2-year-old, almost 2-year-old, going on 10-year-old might understand it, and he immediately was like, kitty cat. So, I mean, he's almost in his 2, so he has the mood swings just like a cat. He likes to have his alone time playing with his trains, but he's super cuddly. So everyone knows now it's kitty cat. He's got a big stuffed kitty in his room and a little kitty that he carries all over the place with him. Actually prefers to carry the large kitty around, which is like his size.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, good. Elephant, your dad, baby elephant. Okay, so I want to ask you, because for all the veterans out there that are listening and those who have had permanent injuries or struggling with mental health or just an injury that's changed the course of their life, I kind of want to hear, is there any time in the Marine Corps or post-Marine Corps before the loss of your dad that stood out to you as like a situation where this was a moment that you had to change, or a really big challenge in your life that forced you to grow? It could have been just struggling with, being a female, one of the only female pilots in the Marine Corps, and there were more female pilots, but being a minority, or was it post-Marine Corps and the work you do now?
So for me, probably the biggest, there's a kind of a incremental change that happened, and it did happen in a large way, going from when I was growing up, and I went to Naval Academy. So
Mm-hmm.
you're entering a military environment at the age of 18 that
Mm-hmm.
most everybody that's listening will remember. And all of that was a change for all of us. You're going from being a civilian and a carefree high school student doing what,
Mm-hmm.
what everybody does, to then being in the military. I think the biggest change there for me was based on when I was raised in a very gender neutral environment. There was no, there was no kind of gender roles that I observed or were really talked about with me. My dad just he just wanted me to work hard and be on time. Being
Mm-hmm.
on time was very important. And just work hard and, be the best person that I could be. And he was super proud of me. And so going to the Naval Academy was the first time I was actually in an environment where there was a culture that looked at women differently than men.
Mm-hmm.
Now the Naval Academy, I think, has upwards of 30% women. When I was there, it was more like around 10%.
Yeah.
And it was really strange. It was the start of me having body image issues. It was the start of me having these thoughts around that I'm different, or I'm not that I'm not as good. I mean, thoughts around because I'm a woman, and that's the only reason why. And granted that reason might be justified by, I don't know, a million things. You're not as strong, you're not as fast, or you're fat, or you're a
Mm-hmm.
slut, or whatever they might
Mm-hmm.
be. But it really came down to the fact that I was a different gender.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I'd experienced that. And that was a real shock. But it's not everyone there,
Right.
I think it's just more of a culture. It's more of a scent in the air, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just, I think, just as a young person, getting your head around that, not being prepared for it all, and kind of having to figure your way through that.
Right.
That's probably something I would have been helpful to me to maybe understand a little bit more.
The culture of
So
that.
kind of figuring my way around that. And everybody was figuring it out on their own. I mean, you did have a couple close girlfriends, but I had my basketball team, I had a couple roommates, but that was that. And I do have very, very close male friends that are from there also.
Mm-hmm.
And you did, again, it's hard to describe how something can be in the air and so prevalent culturally in an organization, but not quite as obvious when you're doing your one-on-ones and at the individual level.
Right. I can relate to that. I mean, I didn't go to an academy. I did look at, because being in softball, they didn't have a softball team at the Naval Academy. They had like a club team. They actually, West Point was the academy that had a more competitive softball team.
Right.
You know, they had a really, the Naval Academy had an actual, a legit varsity basketball team.
Right.
But when I went to visit West Point, I think coming from a very sheltered, growing up with a single father, two brothers, it was like, oh my gosh, I think this is too serious for me. This is a too serious of an environment. But I also, I did ROTC, and so that was a slower transition to, it wasn't even an example of the military would be like, but there I was, for the first time too, was compared men to women. Like
Yeah.
I was put up against, so there was 2 other female Marine options in my ROTC unit, and we were compared to each other and then compared to the men. And it was always one of the things my gunny would say is, oh, you run like a guy, like as a compliment, as in you run, that was his compliment, as in you run fast.
Yeah.
But it also was the first time that I was aware of the gender differences, because I grew up with a brother, two brothers and my dad, and I felt like, you know, there wasn't men, women, pretty
Right.
gender neutral. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't really have a strong female presence in my life, but I didn't feel like I stood out or anything.
Yeah. 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 And then, so when I was graduating, my year graduating was the first year that women could service select aviation in the Marine Corps.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the women that were, and that was about, changes happening that were required to happen in the Defense Authorization Act that allowed women to be in have a combat mission, combat MOS, and then also be on combat ships. And so the reason women weren't flying in the Marine Corps for so long is because all of their aircrafts designated combat, and then they really only have one airframe that doesn't deploy on a Navy ship, and that would be a C-130. Everybody else deploys, all the other aircraft deploy on a Navy ship. So we had to have 2 changes to be really, that needed to get made, and they were made one right after another.
Right.
So it allowed me to service select. So, really the few women that were before my class were women that were, because all of us in college would have been graduating the same time, were women that were already in the pipeline and then did a transfer to the Marine Corps from the Navy pipeline. That were a little bit older. So when I did get out in the fleet, it was very soon, for like in the first several women flying in the Marine Corps. Before you graduate, you actually go out and you visit. You're given the opportunity to spend some summers visiting different job types, so you can really make an informed decision about what you want to do. And I do remember going out to and I spent about, I guess, a week or 2 weeks at Cobra's Huey Squadron, and some of the guys there, some of the pilots there saying, we don't want you here and you shouldn't be here. They were very serious about that. And I remember feeling so shocked.
Right.
That, again, even though I had started to get acclimated to that type of an attitude at school, it was so shocking to me that somebody would not want me there solely for the fact that I'm a woman. They had no idea about me. They would have no idea how competent a pilot could be. We weren't even doing that. We were just young college kids visiting.
Right.
It actually turned me off from service selecting Marine Corps. I changed my service selection after that to Navy. And then one of the Marines there pulled me aside and told me that this was something I was going to be facing, Navy or Marine Corps, and encouraged me to go back and continue staying with the Marine Corps. And I ended up doing that. But I think that, it's just strange.
Yeah.
To me.
Well,
it's a strange, and but you get used to it, right? This becomes the new normal of an environment that you live in. And I think, and every female is doing it. And they're trying to figure out on their own. There wasn't enough of you. And it's not just this occupation. I'm sure this is happening I've heard this in medicine. I'm sure it's in
engineering,
a lot of different fields still. It is, if there's not enough density of women around you, you kind of have to work through it on your own. Yes. And then there's this other thing that happens where maybe there's only 1 or 2 women, maybe you sync and jive with them, maybe you don't.
Right.
So there's, you're very limited in kind of your support network. So I think I wasn't great at handling this. I
Well, how
made a,
old were you too? You're still
yeah,
very
yeah,
young.
very young. I mean, if I could go back and do it again now,
Sure.
it probably wouldn't bother me as much. It wouldn't
Mhm.
hurt my feelings so much. You know, I would recognize that all of those feelings that people were pushing towards me, they're not about me. They're about somebody else's insecurity.
Right.
Because I'll tell you, once I got out in the fleet, none of the excellent male pilots ever had a problem with me.
Right.
It was only the mediocre ones that did.
Yep.
So it was not about me. It was about having me there for somebody that was feeling insecure, with some affront to their manhood or
Mhm.
competence or something like, you know, something like that. None of this had anything to do with
You.
Alyce.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was definitely screwed up stuff I did. So some people probably were very, very righteous and, you know, wanting to like chew me up and down or whatever.
Right.
But I'm talking about the very, very specific judgments upon me because I'm a woman.
Right.
I think for other women, what I saw, and I'm hoping that there's enough density now that they don't feel like this, is I definitely saw a lot of women trying to be one of the guys,
Mhm.
trying to talk bad about the other women. It's not widespread. My experience
Mhm.
was not widespread with that. My experience was in general, as much as you could be, you're kind of supportive. But like I said, our density was extremely low.
Right.
You know, maybe one or two other women.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so I think my advice with that is, um, for people is, you know, you have to just be you. One thing is, you know, sometimes we work so hard to try to make everybody the same. We and cherish that are among us too. And there's differences between men and women, but those
yeah.
differences are good. They should be seen as a strength, not like that a woman needs to start acting like a man and talking a low voice or
Right.
whatever kind of weird thing someone might be experiencing with you. Is that we're okay just as we are,
Right.
and then judging and holding our standards to each other on the performance of our work and our competency in those areas.
Agreed.
So that is, I think, where the Marine Corps needs to get to. That's basically where everybody needs to get. I mean, there should be no difference in standard,
Right.
physical or mental, for any job.
Right. Well,
So
Alyce, I appreciate you bringing those things up because I can relate in my own way. I was a women engineer, which
mhm,
is women were in the ground area, infantry, weren't allowed in combat until just a few years ago,
mhm,
actually. So I think aviation came before us. Like we were supposed to just be in support units.
mhm,
So, you know, I found myself, and we discussed this, in combat when I was deployed in 2005, which was years before we were allowed in combat. Because running support in Iraq and Afghanistan is, you're still running
yeah,
you're going to approach IEDs, you're going to
yeah, it's a
come
different
across.
kind of battlefield.
But the point is, like in my training too in engineering, there's one other woman in my class
Yeah.
and there was 6 other guys. We had a small engineering class, but in my TBS class there was 10 of us out of 200 lieutenants. So being the minority, I found it that just having to, I felt in the beginning I had to stick up for myself quite a bit.
Mhm.
And that wasn't something I was used to, like having to do it because I was a woman. Now, I like the way, you know, and a younger version of myself when I was 22, I'd say I was dealing with my own internal struggles and very, you know, looked the part, acted the part on the outside, but on the inside, I was so insecure. And so anything anyone said to me, I held it inside and believed it. And so it just kind of ate away at me. And so whether it was someone, oh my gosh, you're such a badass PFTer, or, oh, like that great job there. Wow, did you gain some weight today? Or did you gain some weight? I haven't seen you in a while. Like I would get all kinds of comments. Like all of that went inside, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And I didn't know that the people actually judging me, I had a executive officer who was kind of a dickhead, like actually a royal dickhead, and he liked to reprimand me in front of my Marines. That I took that personally, which, being an older version of myself and listening to you is like, no, don't take that personally, because that's his own insecurity imposing that on you. He was the one that sent out a widespread email about me, about women don't belong in the engineering field. Yeah. And so considering the source, and I deal with people who are dickheads today, it's like, oh, that's just their own stuff. I can very much brush it off faster. But when I was in my early 20s, I was coming straight out of Villanova, being a competitive athlete, kind of starting to see these gender issues with my ROTC and like the comparisons. And then now being in the fleet and having a young platoon of pretty much 18 to 22-year-old males, maybe one or two females, I felt the pressure of and the judgment, and I did not know how to handle that. And I think sometimes I did try to be one of the guys, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And then I was myself, but the way I was myself wasn't accepted. Yeah. Didn't feel accepted, so I kept like beating myself up to try to be someone different. And so that's kind of what led me to, it started before the Marine Corps, some of this insecurity just from sports and being competitive and like identifying with only wins. And now I was identifying with, I had to be the top Marine. And if I wasn't the fastest, strongest female or male, like I was disappointed in myself, and I was told I was a disappointment, and people looked at me differently. And I would also give, advice to a younger version of myself, or a young woman who's currently 22 leading a platoon, or a new pilot, like kind of latch on to those people who are doing a good job and value those other people who are doing a good job, and don't judge you based on your gender. And like you said, it's usually the people who are really crushing it and have a good sense of self. Like find those people. There might be very few of them. Find them and don't take what anyone else says personally, which is easier said than done.
The faster, stronger thing is interesting.
Oh yeah.
We have this glorification around athletes and physical strength and stuff. And I that's probably some cultural stuff that we have here. Look at how professional athletes are paid, and well, at least some women, mostly men. But it's not always the fastest, strongest person that's the best at their job.
Yep.
Maybe that person happens to be, but being in the Marine is a lot of this mm-hmm. and a lot of this, and how these tie together, right?
Yes.
Being a good leader, understanding like the technical attributes of your job, performing those. Just right. Because you can run fastest or lift the most weight, those are not going to necessarily help you at all in those other two areas.
Right. And
honor, courage, and commitment does not come from pumping iron.
Right.
So
Arnold Schwarzenegger might disagree, but yes, I know. Yeah.
So I think that's like a kind of thing where mm-hmm. We go back to a cultural thing of what are you stepping into? Number one, you're stepping into a system that has made standards that are not equal, that are completely out of your control. Mm-hmm. So you're already at a disadvantage because you've already put into something where the physical fitness standards are not the same. Mm-hmm. I do not advocate for that at all.
Likewise.
And if maybe you don't need to do 20 pull-ups to do your job. Maybe there's something different there. I don't know. That was something I liked that General Conway did when he made a physical fitness test that was about wearing gear and those type of applications. of your job as a Marine, because how, you know, when, okay, you're in your go fasters and you're in your little silkies and you're sprinting down the road, where does that help you ever in your job that you're doing as a Marine?
Right.
Ever. So I think that I'm a big believer, and especially now that we've opened up all these positions to combat roles, special forces is open up, physical standards have to be the same. Yes. All standards have to be the same. If there's a standard that's going to change, it's an age-related standard. Right. Otherwise, I think that you create an environment that will always put somebody at a disadvantage, because it always gives somebody something that they can point to. Right.
I 100% agree. I actually, when women were allowed in special operations units, this was not too long ago, I remember my friend who's a morning show producer brought me on to talk about women in the military. That was exactly my point of, in order to close the gap of pointing fingers, we have to keep the standards the same. It just has to be that way. And so that's,
you know, and I think like when you roll into these you always have a new normal happening. Maybe every day is a new normal for you. But I have to go back to something that I think that there's several people in my life that have, you know, helped me achieve this mindset. My dad's one. My high school basketball coach, huge with this. Yes. And that is like, just have this, you just have to stand up and just keep moving forward. You just have to put one foot in front of the other and continue to move through your life. And as you take those steps through your life, you know, you're going to learn along the way. Like now I think I have a lot more ability of compassion and empathy, and I can lead more with love than before, because it was, you know, you're younger and you don't have it frustrated more easily, comes up more. But I think it's that you just have to continue to move forward through these things. Yes. I mean, you can do it.
Yes. I think, Alyce, that's an important message, because we're all going to have hard times that maybe put us flat on our back or ass or whatever, and really take us out of the game. But the key is to never give up, and and that never giving up doesn't have to be this heroic thing. It's just one foot in front of the other. Get up and move. Go outside. I mean, this is kind of what, you know, when I was 10 years old, and this comes into my mind so much, especially when I'm dealing with these moments that kind of sit me down and like, what the hell just happened? Or why me? Or when I start to like really look and start to blame myself and be a bully. My mom, I remember before she passed away, was like, Teresa, life has to go on no matter what. Life can be very unfair. But the key is you just keep going.
Yeah.
And so in times of, like when I had to leave the Marine Corps, it wasn't the time I wanted. It wasn't the way I wanted, but I just had to keep going. And I knew that whatever it is I was dealing with, I needed to learn how to deal with it inside. Because I was letting all of these other external things make me feel like that was my identity. Right. Like what these people were saying about me, or my scores or my wins or losses, was my identity. Yeah. And somehow just, you know, putting one foot in front of the other, it was like, okay, I can do this. It's going to take time though. It's a process, not a pill.
Well, and I think the other aspect that I want to just mention that I personally feel is very important with that, moving through your life, is always paying attention to the wake you're leaving. And so when I say that, you know, if you've ever been on a boat and the boat moves through and it leaves a wake, and you can watch the waves ripple off, and they kind of ripple to infinity, is that what wake, as you move through your life, are you leaving behind you? Are you leaving one that's influencing people in a positive and a loving and a fulfilling way? Mm-hmm. Or are you leaving one that's not?
Right.
and you don't want to be on the not end.
Right.
Right? You don't want your wake to be damaging people. You don't want it to be something that people are running from. You know,
Right.
you want it to be influencing and making people feel good as best as you can. None of us are perfect, but I often think about my wake in
Mm-hmm.
life and what am I leaving behind me as I move through it. That's really important to me.
Well, I like that.
Especially as I get older, I'm more aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
I am happy that sometimes I see old friends or old people I went to, people I went to school with. I didn't mean to just call the people I went to school with old, even though that came out that way. Um, uh, and I'm always happy if they're sharing a happy memory of me.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good analogy and a great way to think about what you do. It doesn't have to be just with work, but how you treat people.
Mm-hmm.
Because people will forget what you do, but they won't forget how you made them feel.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I very much think about that. It's like people will never forget you caring about them or
Mm-hmm.
having that empathetic conversation or taking the time to listen.
And yeah,
So,
and you don't know what thing you might do for someone that really might stick with them.
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
we probably have always had all had this experience. I've had the memories that were just so profound for me that I've shared with people that they can't remember. And the same thing has happened to me with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you never know what you might do for someone that might really change them or might stick with them and they might hold on to. So hopefully it's something that is good and positive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And to add to that, if you know your truth, which is something that I don't think I really knew what that even meant until
Mm-hmm.
my early 30s, believing and knowing what your soul, like the essence of who you are and what you're about.
Yeah.
And so you can only give, whether you're there in the military or not, you can only give um, based on who you are. So if some people, based on the external feedback, don't appreciate it, it's okay.
Right.
It don't take that personally, which is something I did not know how to do when I was in my 20s or early 30s. So thank you, Alyce. And I actually want to talk now about your dad, because you brought him up a number of times, and I know you lost him recently, and I got a chance to meet him a number of times, and I feel very blessed. But I want to share about that new normal, because 4 years ago I had one with my own father,
Yeah.
and it was quite the transition for me. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your dad and this process of what's it like now having your dad.
It doesn't feel normal. It's interesting you say normal. My dad, I don't feel like my dad's so gone as much as I feel like I miss talking to him.
Yeah.
So, my dad and I were very close. And I think that one of the things that's precious about the last several years, I mean, I moved out to California before my dad was sick so I could be closer to him and other members of my family. And it just so happens he then got cancer. So it was kind of one of those blessings that I had moved out here and I had set up such that I was working for myself, and it allowed me some flexibility to really spend time. And then some unbelievable people that I work with that are my clients right now that really supported me. Bill and Stan, if they listen to this, I want to throw it out to them
Yeah.
because they really, and also the people in my company that worked with me, is they really supported me being with my father as much as possible. And they're, towards the end of his life, I felt like there was this, as sad and as sick as he was, there was this beauty in the fact that I could fully be with him, and I could love and support him, and he could love me back in his most vulnerable time. That is special. And we fully shared our love back and forth. There was nothing left between he and I when he passed. And so I think now sometimes I might think like, man, my dad, I used to love talking about spiders. I used to send him a million pictures of spiders. We used to love like talking about my bamboo growing, and just like really little, watching the Army Navy game together.
Mm-hmm.
And if we weren't together, he'd be texting me nonstop about it. There was just things that we did later in life that, I miss. I mean, we have a long history together. I could talk about me and my dad and showing you a million pictures and a million funny memories. But now it feels like he feels gone, but not like that, only in the fact that I just can't really talk to him and I can't hang out with him. Mm-hmm. But I still feel him here. Yeah. So it doesn't feel like so much of a profound loss, because I have and I always have had him so tight.
Right.
If that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I miss talking to him sometimes. Sometimes I can't even believe that I can't talk to him. So I'm not so sure that maybe that is my new normal. I don't think that feeling's ever going to go away. I don't feel like I'm ever going to get used to that.
Yeah, I think I've learned it becomes it becomes different over time, but there's still a missing. Yeah. I still have my dad's voice, his voice on my voicemail. Like I won't let that go. Yeah. But Alyce, I really like that so I want to expand upon something you mentioned, because when I share the story of my dad, I basically, in my own way, have the same experience. So my dad he died tragically. Like it was just, he was healthy, and then on a bike ride, he had a heart attack. He was 69 and basically his heart rate got above a certain amount for too long of a period on a hot day when he was probably dehydrated. Anyway, he was in the endless mountains. There's no help. But I remember thinking when he did die, it was like, I didn't have that feeling of, I wish I told him this. I wish I said this. Because every time, like I worked for CrossFit at the time, and I was traveling around the world, I did as much possible to be on the West or the East Coast to teach there, so I could be with him, or make the effort to take trips out there to see him any chance I could, because like that's time is love, and he's my dad, and I know that one day he wouldn't be around. So we enjoyed time together, and I didn't have that regret of not telling him I loved him, or not spending that time with him, which wasn't the same for other parts of my family.
I think that's for there is not anybody that I love that doesn't know I love them. And I think
I love you, Alyce.
I love you too. I think if you can, that's important. So just think, I mean, and even, when I told my most recent boyfriend, I just was like, you know what? I'm going to tell him. I'm not going to wait for him to say it first. Because what if something happens and I never got a chance to tell him? Like here's one person in my life that I love that doesn't necessarily know, because I actually haven't told them. So and it's not just saying, it's by actions too, but the people that I love, they know I love them, and I want them to. Yeah. And I think that's a really important part of life for me.
Well, I think that's a part of life for any human who doesn't want to live without regrets, right? Like one of the things that people, I've done some research on this. What do people wish when they're on their deathbed that they did? Spend more time with those they love. Actually say they love
Mm-hmm.
Like, be more kind to the people around them, their loved ones. So they wish they worked less, right? And spent more time with those that mattered. And so being able to like apply that to your young life right now is wisdom. And it seems common sense, but I think people need to hear that. Like, don't wait to tell someone you love them. Spend
Yeah, you're stronger when you love people, not weaker. And you're stronger when they know. It seems scary, or it's not weak, or it's just do it. You'll like it.
time.
Give it a try.
So now what's so with your dad, one of the things that's helped me, like my dad's birthday was the other day. His anniversary is in September. In those days, sometimes around those periods, I can feel low. It just is in my cells, because my cells, my physiology know that he's not physically here, and I love to call him on his birthday or see what he was up to. But I started to build a tradition like this. On his birthday, we did a hike, and we drank coffee at Starbucks, because he loved to go to Starbucks and drink coffee, and he loved to sweat, so we sweated. Is there anything that you do now on behalf of your dad?
Well, yeah, I mean, we do. You're probably asking me about the Love Heart. My dad hasn't been actually passed. Yeah, he hasn't really been passed away. It hasn't been like
In a short time.
gone that long, because I guess about 6 months now. But we did have an Army Navy game come and go, and I felt like, and it did happen to fall on his birthday, and I felt like, now we definitely are going to win, but we didn't. So, yeah. But yeah, I do. Well, the Love Harvey campaign that we started when my dad was alive, and he was kind of struggling with this feeling. He knew most likely, I think there was a chance that he was not going to make it. And he started struggling with this idea of legacy. So the first thing he went to do was start a foundation, which is very, very difficult and a lot of work, especially for someone in stage 4 cancer. And there really wasn't anybody like, I think, that had the capacity. Like, running a foundation it's a job, it's a full-time job, and the rest of us have full-time jobs. And so one of the things that he just was trying to figure out, he had some legacy stuff going on, which I think is normal for people towards their end of life. But then also, I think he had this feeling of real gratitude towards people that were his caregivers, and how could he give back to them? So one of the things that we had talked about was doing these letters. I don't have one in here with me, but my dad used to write me letters. They said, "Love, Dad." Just recently, we found one that he wrote to my mom, signed "Love, Harvey." And he also got a couple really nice, sweet letters while he was sick, after his cancer came. And so we thought we would start this letter writing campaign to just give people, try to encourage people to do what we were just talking about, which is express their gratitude and express their love, but do it in the form of a written note. And so, our idea behind that was, there's a lot of things that actually are applicable to people that are struggling with illness, or even any sort of, anything, struggling, any sort of struggle. And that's the journaling. One of the things that happens with journaling and writing is it allows you to focus your mind on one thing, which is a form of meditation. So it helps helps calm down your human stress response. It helps focus you on, like, gratitude. Expressing gratitude is a really well documented way to make people start to feel better. And so and so there was that aspect. So there's the therapeutic aspect of someone actually taking a time to write a letter.
Mm-hmm.
Then, and it has to do with handwriting too. Actually, that's what journaling is. Like they encourage
Mm-hmm.
you to write with your hands, not necessarily journal type, even though you can do
Yeah.
that too. And then also the thought of how good it feels. So it feels good while you're writing it. It feels really good to send it off, and the anticipation is nice. The fact that you're not getting some sort of immediate response like you expect with a text or Facebook or something along those lines is actually a really nice feeling. If you haven't written a letter, give it a try.
Yeah.
Sending it out is, I know you have, Teresa. I mean, for anyone listening, sending it out and with it having no expectation of immediate response or immediate like is such a nice feeling.
Right.
You can't check on it. It's in the mail. You
Right.
don't know when it's going to get there.
Right.
You know, it's, who knows? Sometimes it takes a week for my letters to get it to LA, and it takes them 2 days to get 2 days to get to DC. But you feel good when you send it out. You feel good when you write it. You know, when that person gets that letter, they feel happy.
Yes.
You
Well,
know,
yeah.
So we have, I think today I posted, I'm horrible at social media, and so I'm trying a new approach. I don't know. I started to write some haikus and post them. I did my first one today.
Nice.
A letter, and I put one on a picture. But I think we were up to like 324 or something like that. So if you think of that, so if collectively we've written 324 letters, it's basically me, you, and a handful of other people that have contributed. That's 648 times that somebody's felt good, right? Because you're feeling good sending it, you're feeling good opening it. And I hope everybody noticed that I could multiply 324 by 2.
By 2. I noticed.
Without a calculator. That might be the most amazing.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I think it's, I'm having some trouble getting it off the ground to get like it to catch. But if not, put a goal of 10 letters, and maybe it takes the rest of my life between me, you, and a couple other people to get 10,000 letters written. But it could take like a day too.
Well, it could. And it's, well, so if people want to look up what you're doing, where can they find about Love Harvey?
It's on Facebook. It's called Love Harvey on Facebook, and you'll know it because there's a little stamp with an elephant on it.
Perfect. His spirit animal.
And it says Love Harvey. There is an old show called Love Harvey too, so sometimes it might get a little confused, but you'll be able to tell this one. It's on Instagram as Love Harvey Letters, and there's a loveharvey.org website.
Okay.
It's just, the website's just out there. But basically what I try to do is, if you do write a letter and you want to share and add to the count, you can just hashtag it and post it. And then I can add it to the overall count, which I update periodically to let everyone know how many letters have been written.
Well, I would say, I know since this whole movement has forced me to put pen and paper. When I think about telling someone how I feel, instead of writing them a quick email, I send a thank you letter. So I've invested in nice thank you letters because that makes me feel good too.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty. I use a calligraphy pen.
Wow.
I don't write calligraphy. I just use a calligraphy pen.
one step closer.
It makes me feel good. And I know it's just so nice to not get that instant feedback. I actually really like,
There's a letter that Teresa wrote me.
What is it? It says motherfucking girl power. Yeah.
Power. And it's Princess.
Good one.
Who was highly influential in my young life.
I want to read something. I did some research on this whole journaling thing, actually, because I was really interested in cognitively what it does or putting pen to paper. So there's like 5 benefits here I want to read, which are going off of what you talked about, Alyce. So based on a collection of studies, like a brain imaging study by UCLA psychologists revealed that expressing feelings in verbal or written words reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, and engages the thinking brain. This brain pattern can make sadness, anger, and pain less intense. Number 2, expressive writing may also offer physical and psychological benefits to people by boosting immune function, so less likely to get sick. 3, simply writing about feelings, telling someone else how you feel, potentially, before a stressful task helps chronic worriers' brain perform more efficiently. Their brains were less active and performed a task using fewer resources. 4, writing about feelings after a traumatic event can actually make those physical wounds heal faster, such as a loss. Everyone deals with trauma, but a loss of a loved one can be a traumatic event. 5, in Your Brain on Ink, which is a book, the author explains how you can use writing to engage your thinking brain and calming parasympathetic nervous system to harness self-directed neuroplasticity to rewire your brain. So if you're always someone who's like, click, follow, like on my phone, I gotta see what other people are doing, why aren't people liking my stuff? Like, write a letter. And then number 6, I told you there's 5, there's actually 6 because I counted wrong. The act of using a pen on paper to put your thoughts on paper can help you retain the information you are writing. Hence, why I did better in grad school than undergrad. Yeah. So,
let me give, for anybody that wants to write some letters, let me tell them something else that's super fun.
Okay.
It's picking the stamp for your letter. I really dig this part.
Okay. So, picking a stamp.
Picking the stamp is really fun. The post office has all kinds of really great stamps. You can order them online or you can pick them out. They're really pretty. And it's actually kind of fun. Like, I sent a thank you note to Carrie and Doug, and I have a tennis ball stamp. And Carrie's obsessed with tennis, so I could put that tennis ball stamp. So often when I'm sending letters to folks, I actually think about the stamp I put on their card. And that's why if you do look at Instagram or Facebook, I was just taking pictures of the stamps because I didn't really know what else to do. I'm too old to like just get Instagram maybe. No. And then so now I'm trying something else to kind of get some more people looking at the site, maybe thinking about sending letters. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me what picture's up. I just would like, it honors my father. I love that it does. You know, at his funeral, one of the things, he had 2 different rabbis. We had 2 different services, and both of them said one of the best ways that you can honor Harvey is to be kind and to spread kindness. And I think that this is a really great way, one of many ways I hope to do that. And it's fun. It's fun. So.
Well, I appreciate this, Alyce, and it's helped me to just get out of my head onto paper. I really enjoy it. So you brought that joy of letter writing back for me.
Thank you.
And so I would challenge anyone listening to put a pen to paper and put a little Love Harvey on the back of your envelope, take a picture, post it, tag Love Harvey letters, Facebook or Instagram. And or where can people find you, Alyce? Like, do you have an email or a website people can go to find you if they have questions?
Oh, to contact me? You know, there is some contact information. I guess the best thing would be to just message me on Facebook or Instagram, probably. Yeah.
Okay, so you can do it through Love Harvey or Alyce Fernebok. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. This is an honor, and really I love you, Alyce. And you have. Let's all go out and spread kindness.
Yeah. Here's the other big elephant if anybody wants to.
Rambo and shakes. All right. Thank you, Alyce.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.